Hello everyone, my name is Surya Avansa and I want to present a video about the UiPath SDK for QuickBase that I developed as an entry for the QuickBase Hackathon. So, just to give you a background about how this came about and why I developed this SDK, basically there was a point when I was actually working on a CRM application in QuickBase, and to be able to get data from different websites that host the opportunities data that a typical organization would be interested. I was in the process of building some robotic process automations using UiPath, and that would basically go to the various websites, log on and get the data and insert them as records in the QuickBase CRM application as opportunities within the application. So this is what I had to do. And as a part of developing the robotic process automations, I was looking for some ready to use SDKs in the UiPath marketplace that would basically interact with QuickBase. There are several such reusable components on the UiPath marketplace that would interact with, let's say, databases like SQL or Oracle or with Salesforce and with other, several other technologies, but nothing was there at that time for interacting with QuickBase. So I thought, let me do that. Let me develop the SDK. And so that's how I ended up developing this SDK. This is basically called sva.quickbase.activities, and you can actually find it for a free download on the UiPath marketplace as well. So what does the SDK basically allow you to do? If you are a bot developer and you are trying to develop automations for adding data, for reading data from QuickBase, or editing data in QuickBase, or several other activities that we will see, how I'm, various capabilities of this SDK. If that's what you're doing, then this is what you should use. You should use this UiPath SDK will allow you to do exactly that. It'll allow you to add records, edit records, query the existing records. All that it needs is the domain, the DBID of the table, and you need the FIDs and other authentication information such as maybe the user token and or the app token and so on and so forth. It also has other activities such as that will allow you to interactively log into QuickBase and perform some interactive activities like emailing a report or attaching a file or refreshing a particular synced table. And these are some of the other things. The basic difference between the first set of activities and the second set of activities is the first set of activities is completely no user interface is involved in that, and everything goes under the hood. It uses the QuickBase HTTP API calls, and everything happens under the hood, nothing on the screen. Whereas the second set of activities like emailing and all those kind of activities that have to be done within QuickBase interactively, these are the activities that allow you to do that. And then you have to provide the information for that, such as the credentials, who to email this report, which report to email, and so on and so forth. How did I build this? Not to brag about this, but I'm certified in UiPath as an advanced developer as well as in QuickBase as a builder and expert. And so I use these skills and experience to build what's called a library in UiPath, which will serve as the SDK for QuickBase. I use the HTTP API activities in UiPath that will basically need me to fill in the input parameters for any HTTP activity such as the header, the endpoint URL, the body, the authentication information, and to make these calls and everything. I also used obviously the documentation available on QuickBase HTTP API call, and to provide, and I use these activities such as API add record, edit record, and other such options and calls to make all these SDK activities possible. Some of the challenges that I faced during this journey was basically I was trying to see if I have to create activities to add a record separately for employee table versus department table, separate activity for maybe um, opportunities table or clients table, vendors table, something like that, which might actually make it simpler for each table. But then when I kind of looked at it from the end user point of view, which will probably be somebody who's a UiPath developer writing or reading data into QuickBase, if I were to look at it from their perspective, I thought, let me make it more generic, even at the expense of a little more, work from my side to make it happen. And so I decided to make all these activities so generic that it'll ask you for the domain name, the DBID, the dictionary with the name value pairs, where the name is the FID and the value is the data that has to get into the FID, and things like that, without being specific to any particular table. It's completely table agnostic, and all it needs is the metadata about the table. So that is one of the the challenges that I overcame. And the second thing was, as I was going through this journey of um, doing automating activities like attaching a file automatically without user interaction, and or maybe if I have to send an email to a list of people that you would have to do within QuickBase interactively, right? Those are some of the things that I could not do it um, from using programmatic activities or quick-based API calls or anything like that. So then I thought, hey, wait a minute, this is UiPath, which is primarily meant to automate human activities and human tasks, right? So I leveraged on UiPath to basically to build activities. For example, to attach a file, which will basically, the way it will work is it'll open the browser, it'll log on, and then into QuickBase into your application, and then it'll directly go to the record to add or edit the attachment file, and it'll click on the browse button, select the file, and press the save button. Then come back to QuickBase and press the save button so that the file is attached, and all this happens interactively, completely automated. So those are the other things that I had to do because I couldn't do it with the API call. So that's the if I call that, that was the second challenge. Well, the as far as the accomplishments, right, that I feel I'm proud of is, um, after having developed this SDK, I was able to use it, several other bot projects where it was completely a different application, different table sets and everything, and all I had to do was just use this reusable component in the other bot and drag and drop those activities and just fill in the parameters and finish the job, rather than having to redo all these activities from the scratch, which is basically the idea of developing an SDK, right? So that was a good accomplishment that I really saw as a ROI for doing this SDK. And the second thing that I think I can be probably proud of is, after having published this in the UiPath Marketplace in May or June 2020 timeframe. As of November, I already saw that there were 79 downloads, that other UiPath developers have downloaded this and they've started to use it. So that's, I think, speaks for itself as an accomplishment from my side. The third thing that I would really like to say is security, and I'm a big fan of being developing cyber applications that are that are secure from a cybersecurity perspective, developing defensive applications so that people cannot hack into our bots and applications. So I definitely used a lot of secure activities that will store the passwords and other credentials such as user tokens or app tokens, everything in a very secure manner on the orchestrator website, which is completely encrypted. And even as you are developing the workflows for that will retrieve the those credentials, the developer cannot see them. Even they just have to make those activities, and they can bring the bring the credentials from the orchestrator, and directly they have to use it into their bot. There's no way you can see them, and I made sure of those kind of precautions to be taken care of. So that way, security is a big accomplishment that I'm really proud of. Last but not the least, I've been using free resources and from UiPath, the forum, and other components, and even in QuickBase. The QuickBase forum is a great place, the community forum, where I've been asking for information, maybe providing a little feedback here and there. But I felt this is a good time for me to give back to the community, and so that that's one reason why I'm making it freely available on the UiPath marketplace, and that's, I think, something that I'm proud of. Lessons learned, I would basically like to put them in three sweet, neat quotes. Everything, it comes out of necessity. Like I was explaining before, I had the necessity to come up with an SDK, and I looked for it in the marketplace. It wasn't there, so that's how I came up with. I developed it myself. So I think necessity is the mother of invention, definitely. And as in during the journey, like I was saying before, there were several challenges, and what kept me glued to the project and committed to this is, I think, where there is a will, there is definitely a way. I really wanted this to happen for my projects, and so that's another inspiring quote that I can think of. And last but not the least, there are several challenges, technical challenges, business challenges, and other, you can take security as another challenge. And so the quote that comes to my mind is, every job has its own problems to solve. It is the type of problem that you love solving and fixing that really determines your career. So, those are the three inspiring lessons I can say I've learned in this journey. As far as the roadmap ahead for this particular SDK, right now I have developed some operations or activities that I call based on the CRUD operations, like create, read, update, and delete. And so I've created activities for add, edit, and read. Delete is not done yet. It's coming for in the future versions. And the second phase is, like I was mentioning before, I have also developed other UI-based activities, such as attaching a file interactively, emailing a report, downloading attachments from the QuickBase website automatically, things of that nature. And then, of course, the path ahead I really see is, I want to somehow get more feedback, and people can ask for more, and I will definitely be happy to provide them as we go. So, having said that, I really want to now focus on create a demonstration on how to use this SDK. And so, let me take a moment to get that started. These are my contact, how you can contact me. All right. So, let me end that presentation, and now I'm going to show you the UiPath Studio. This is the bot that I developed to test the our reusable component. So we'll look at this first, and then we look at the way the other component, the actual reusable component is structured. Um, so this is how UiPath Studio looks like, where you can start building workflows, also known as XAML files in the UiPath world. And so this is to add a record into the database. And to show you the database, let me show you the structure of the database. So, so I have an application in my builder program called testing SVA QuickBase activities. I have one test that basically, it's called test, and I have some fields, basic fields, just basic fields: first name, middle name, last name, and title. So we the various test activities that I've created will walk you through the process of adding records here and how I can change something. And then I can also read this data from using this SDK into the UiPath database, so into the UiPath bot. So let's have a look at that. So this activity, the way you would build the application, the bot project in UiPath, if you would create a project, and to use this reusable component, you have to go to the manage packages and go to and type, start looking for packages. And here you go, I have the SBA .QuickBase activity, and I would click on install it and saving it. I've already done that for this particular bot, so that's the reason why you don't see the option. But so this is how you would pull the database from the from the orchestrator. You can also use connect, and you would find this in the marketplace. So connect is basically from the marketplace, which I was talking to you before. And so that is another way you can start using this, pulling the application, the reusable component, start using it. To start using the actual workflow, so you would look at SVA. So under activities, you would click on the, because it's under SVA, you will find, let me just start from the beginning. So SVA, QuickBase, and then activities. Under that, I have organized the various activities in the type. CRUD has add record, edit record, and delay read record. And there are miscellaneous functions such as emailing a report as CSV, removing the C data, surround with C data. I will explain that towards the end of the video. But the other things are, the other activities are email report, log with browser, log off from the browser, into QuickBase, and basically, and then if you have a connected table, the sync table, and you want to refresh it with the bot, you can use this activity. Basically, it asks you to provide the DB ID, and then it'll go there and hit the refresh button for you, and then you can sign off. Anyway, so we, in this particular sample, we are going to be focusing on add record, edit record, and read record. So this is the sequence to add record. And so I have, I'm basically to, this is the activity. And this activity has 5 input parameters. One is the dictionary with the FID content. So this basically, this is a UiPath dictionary, and like a name value pairs. And the name is basically the FID number, and the value is the value that you want to get into that particular FID. So you have to construct an FID, this dictionary object with those values, and that's exactly what I'm doing here. Okay, and once I do that, then I already have an token on my QuickBase called test application credential. And once I give that name, what happens is the add record to test the table will use this credential, go to orchestrator, get the value. And similarly for user token credential, it goes there and gets the value. So it now has the app token, it has a credential. And then I have to specify the DB which is a variable where I have the values coming from. And then the domain, in this case, builder SR1, builder program does SR1. So these are the variables that have those values. And once I input those values, to this activity, it runs the API call. It uses all this data to construct the API call, and it runs it. And then these are the output that it offers to give out. And I'm choosing to capture the HTTP result and the RID of the new record that was just added. And then I'm displaying, hey, I just added this RID value. It displays that. The second activity is, I know there could be multiple ways of organizing this video and the screenplay of the whole thing. But I've chosen to go with the various activities in the testing application, and then I will go back to the reusable component in for QuickBase, which is the heart, the meat of the whole presentation, and then I will explain how those are built over in the reusable component. So here again, for editing the given record, at least you need at least one field that you want to modify. So this is the dictionary for the FID for the title, and this is the value for it. And again, the parameters are similar to this. Um, Except that if you notice, the RID in this case is an input parameter, whereas in the previous add record, it was the output parameter. Makes sense, right? To edit record, you need the RID. So therefore, this is the input parameter here. And then I have as usual, I have the dictionary object, the app token credential, the DBID, the domain, and my user token credential. Last but not the least, the last activity that is being used to test the reusable component is to read a record. Okay, and just to give you an idea of the read record, the way it has been designed here is I'm using the generic calls that where you present um, a query parameter, either a QID number or the query string itself or the queue name. And if it so happens that it is returning one record, yeah, it returns one record. But then if it so happens that it is that the criteria that you gave, the query or whatever, returns multiple records, right? You will get all those records, and the output, if you see here, is a data table. A data table, it's a generic word. It's being used across the technology forums. Different people have different names, but in the context of UiPath, a data table is basically a set of rows with and set of a bunch of rows and with several columns. That's about it. It's just a grid. And so basically, if I have one row with 5 columns, then I get one row with those 5 columns. And if the query returns 10 rows, then it returns 10 rows with the same 5 columns. So that's what this the data table is. And so this will now be saved into a variable called return dt, which I'm basically later on using that. I'm reading in that and reading that data table, and I'm displaying the title, the new title that I just changed in this previous activity. Okay, so without further ado, let me go to the structure of how the reusable component has been created. This is the project that houses the reusable component. It's opening the project code. Okay, so in this particular reusable component, basically I'm using other reusable components that I've developed, especially for keeping security in my mind, and how UiPath really makes sure that you read credentials in a whenever you are sending using credentials, it has to be done in a very secure manner. And therefore I created my own version of the mailing, because you have to provide the username and the password, right, to send emails. And so for the regular Outlook emails, and for that purpose I created my own activity where I'm using what do you call the secure activities to make sure that the password retrieved is stored as a encrypted and a secure string, so that nobody can view it from within the studio and all those good activities over there. And that's the reason why I've developed this SVA activities, SVA security related activity component as well. Anyway, so let's focus on our QuickBase SDK, which is internally using those dependent on these two components. So If you recall, in the other app where I'm using this particular component, you saw the organization of CRUD and then the miscellaneous and then UI based, right? So this is where, this is the source code where all those activities are being developed here. So if I look at add record, right? I have all the documentation on how to use, what are the input parameters and everything. And basically, this is how you would develop a reusable component. You would create a library, and then you go about doing your, say declaring your input arguments. These are the various input arguments that I have, that you have seen in the previous part of the video where I was showing you the input arguments and the output arguments, right? For example, you saw that in the add record the RID was output, and that's why you see this as an output parameter. And whereas when I go to the edit record, you'll see that RID is now an input parameter. All those arguments you would have to declare, and then you would develop the you would say, I'm getting this tokens, um, the app token and the user tokens, and then I'm composing the body, and basically then I'm calling the HTTP request activity from UiPath, and I'm providing the variables for the endpoint URL, and then the body, and of course I have to say application XML, and so on and so forth. What else? Headers is there. So there, API add record. So once I provide all these parameters and it is executed, it runs the actual API record HTTP call, and it gets the results into variables like this, HTTP results and status code. I'm capturing all these values in case, and I'm passing them back to the caller so that in case they want to use it, they can use it. Okay, now let us look at edit record activity, which is similar to add, except that in this case it'll expect the record to be available, and so for that it needs the RID. So you have to send the RID, record ID, as an input parameter. RID here is an input parameter. Okay, and otherwise everything else is the same. And so in this case it uses the AP added edit record. Okay, it returns a status code and HTTP result, and all of them go back to the caller as output parameters here: HTTP result and the error text, what else, status code, and all those variables. It takes the DBID as an input, FID content as input, the domain, the credentials, and so these credentials are not the actual values here. These are just the names for which UiPath will go and get the values from orchestrator, and then it will put them into these variables, which are basically, as you see, they are declared as secure string variables. So I'm using also as much security as I can to make sure that it is not only functional but also extremely secure. And the last activity that we're going to see is the read record. Like I was mentioning before, although it says read record, you can also use it for reading a lot more than one record. It all depends on the query string, or how many records qualify whatever criteria you give. Even if it's a report ID you give, QID, and if the QID is returning 100 rows, it will return 100 rows as a data table. The way it does this is it runs a report as a CSV file, and then it downloads it, and then it reads that CSV file into a data table, and it returns a value. So that's exactly what it is being. That's how it is doing this. Okay, so having seen these, let me quickly give you an overview of the other activities. UI based activity especially. Email report. So this will happen interactively. What happens is it will log on, it will launch the browser. It will log into QuickBase using the credentials that we with the where we provide with the credential name. So it will use this, and then of course what you see here is the default parameters that are used to test it. But when you call it from any other bot, these values will get overwritten. These are just for this particular thing to run here. That's all. Okay, and so what happens is it'll compose the URL and it'll launch the browser and it'll go there and actually let me back up. To email a report, it requires that you are already logged in. So you have to run this login with browser workflow, this particular activity first. So because the email report assumes that you are already logged in and the window is already ready to go. The reason I separated them out is because once you log in, it is not necessary that you only have to email a report, right? And you could do several other things such as refreshing the connected table, or you could upload an attachment or what have you. So I separated the login with browser as a separate activity, and so that's the reason why you have to run this separately, and then you can run email the report, and there it'll ask you for, it is basically expecting you to give the query ID parameter, or a queue name or the query string using our syntax, such as fid dot ex dot value, whatever, right? That particular QuickBase language, and you can construct the query, give it as a parameter, and then if you see here, it will actually go to that web, to that particular table. It will navigate to that particular table's homepage, and it will click on the email icon, and then it'll start typing the email addresses physically. It'll actually start typing the email addresses as if a human being is doing it, and then it'll click the send button. And so you can use this activity to automate sending the report as a report, because there is no HTTP activity, or rather HTTP API call within QuickBase to actually do this for you. So the only way is interactive. So that's one reason why I developed this as a as a automated workflow. Similarly, you can use refresh connected table. If you have synced table where, of course, you do have the option where, QuickBase does give you the option of saying automatic or manual, and with an automatic, it can go with different frequencies. But there could be situations where you may not want to, strain the QuickBase server to do it as an within every minute or something, right? If you wanted it to do it on demand, then this activity definitely comes in handy, so that you don't you can say, in QuickBase you can set it up as manual, and then you can call this activity and it will do the refreshing for you automatically, as if it is doing it, it's being done manually. And then lastly, you also have an activity called, it'll sign off from the QuickBase page. So that is what this SVA.QuickBase activities reusable component is all about. And like I was saying, I do have plans on expanding this with more activities based on feedback from the user community. And I hope I hope this will be selected as an entry, and I win the hackathon. Thank you, guys. Bye.